The radio message traveled across a Pacific battlefield in seconds. Enemy listeners could hear every sound. They heard words for birds, fish, and animals. They knew the message was important, but they could not understand what it meant. Even someone who spoke Navajo would not have known the full answer. The message was not simply in another language. Hidden inside that language was a second code, created and carried in memory by a small group of young Navajo Marines. During some of the hardest battles of the Second World War, they sent orders faster than older machines could process them. Their code was never broken. Listen for 3 useful phrases: under pressure, get the message through, and keep something secret. In 1942, the United States was fighting a war across the Pacific Ocean. American forces had to communicate across ships, beaches, aircraft, and islands. Commanders needed to say where troops should move, when an attack should begin, or which position needed help. Radio was fast, but it had a serious weakness. The enemy could listen, too. An ordinary message in English could reveal a plan. A message in a known military code was safer, but codes took time to use. A person might first write the message, transform it into groups of symbols, send it, and then wait while someone on the other side changed it back. Machines could help, but machines were heavy and not always practical near a moving battle. The military needed something fast, portable, and extremely difficult to understand. Philip Johnston believed he had an answer. Johnston had grown up around the Navajo Nation because his father worked there as a missionary. He was not Navajo, but he had learned to speak the language and understood how unusual it was outside the community. Navajo, also called Diné Bizaad by its speakers, was complex and mainly unwritten at that time. Very few people outside the Navajo Nation understood it. Johnston suggested using Navajo speakers for military radio communication. The idea was tested. Navajo speakers translated and sent sample military messages much faster than the older coding method. Marine officers saw the possibility immediately. But speaking ordinary Navajo would not be enough. In May 1942, 29 Navajo recruits arrived at a Marine training base. They had 2 jobs. First, they had to become Marines. They completed military training like the other recruits. Second, they had to build a new communication system almost from nothing. Modern military language included many things that traditional Navajo life had never needed to name: bombers, submarines, machine guns, different ranks and types of military units. The young Marines could not simply search for these words in a dictionary. They had to invent a system that was clear to them, but confusing to everyone else. They began to connect military objects with familiar images. A fighter plane became a hummingbird. A bomber became a chicken hawk. A submarine became an iron fish. A tank became a turtle. These were not direct translations. They were code words. A Navajo speaker who was not trained in the system might understand turtle, but would not know that the radio operator meant a tank. The creators also needed a way to spell names and places that were not in the code book. They developed an alphabet system. To send the English letter A, a code talker could use a Navajo word for an English word beginning with A, such as ant, apple, or axe. Several choices for common letters made the system harder to analyze. The original vocabulary contained 211 terms. It later expanded to 411. There was another remarkable rule. Code talkers did not carry a written code book into battle. They learned the system by memory. New recruits trained together in a special school. They practiced the vocabulary again and again. They sent messages while instructors created noise and pressure around them. They learned to hear quickly, translate quickly, and speak clearly. Accuracy was essential. A wrong number could send people to the wrong beach. One incorrect word could move an attack to the wrong time. The code talkers had to perform under pressure. If you do something under pressure, you do it while facing stress, danger, or very limited time. The method worked in 2 layers. First, a message was turned from military English into the special code. Then the code was spoken in Navajo and sent by radio. On the receiving side, another trained Navajo Marine listened. He understood the Navajo words, knew their secret military meanings, and changed the message back into English. The whole process could take only seconds. An enemy listener faced several problems at once. The language itself was unfamiliar. The sounds did not follow the patterns of European languages. And even if someone identified Navajo, the special vocabulary still hid the military meaning. It was a language inside a language. The first Navajo Code Talkers entered combat at Guadalcanal in 1942. The system proved fast and reliable. The Marines recruited and trained more Navajo men. Estimates vary, but roughly 375 to 420 served as code talkers during the war. They worked in major Pacific operations, including Bougainville, Saipan, Guam, Palaleu, and Iwo Jima. Their equipment was not light. A radio could be heavy, and its antenna could make the operator visible. Code talkers often worked close to command posts or moved with units under fire. Sometimes one man operated the radio while another encoded and decoded messages. In other situations, a single code talker did both jobs. Their purpose was to get the message through. This means to communicate successfully, especially when conditions make communication difficult. Messages included troop movements, requests for supplies, enemy positions, and orders for artillery or aircraft. Speed mattered because the situation could change before a slow message arrived. At Iwo Jima in 1945, Navajo Code Talkers handled hundreds of messages during the first days of the battle. Marine Major Howard Connor later said that 6 men working with his command post sent and received more than 800 messages without an error. The code did not win those battles by itself. Thousands of people fought, planned, supplied, and suffered. But commanders depended on communication, and the Navajo system gave them a fast line that the enemy could not read. When the war ended, many service members returned home to public celebrations. The code talkers could not fully explain what they had done. The program remained classified. The military believed the system might be useful again, so the men were required to keep it secret. To keep something secret means not to reveal information that others are not allowed to know. For more than 2 decades, much of the public knew nothing about their work. The program was declassified in 1968. Slowly, the story became more widely known. Recognition took much longer. In 1982, the United States created Navajo Code Talkers Day. In 2001, the original 29 Code Talkers received Congressional Gold Medals, and other qualified Navajo Code Talkers received silver medals. By then, some of the original men had already died. Their service was finally being honored, but the delay matters. A secret can protect a military system. It can also hide the people who created it. The phrase, an unbreakable language, makes a powerful title, but it needs one important correction. Navajo was not a tool invented by the military. It was and remains the living language of the Diné people. The Code Talkers' achievement came from deep knowledge, creativity, discipline, and trust. They understood the patterns and images of their language well enough to build a second system inside it. Then they memorized that system and used it accurately in extreme conditions. The enemy never broke the operational code during the war. But the strongest part of the story is not only that others failed to understand it, it is that the Code Talkers understood one another so well. Their communication had shared rules. Each word carried an exact meaning. Each trained operator knew how to turn an image like a hummingbird or turtle into useful military information. Technology did not make the system powerful. Human memory and shared understanding did. On a noisy battlefield, the shortest distance between confusion and action was a voice speaking a language that had traveled through generations. Under pressure. It means while experiencing stress, danger, or limited time. Example: she stays calm and makes careful decisions under pressure. Get the message through? It means to communicate successfully despite difficulty. Example: the phone connection was weak, but I finally got the message through. Keep something secret. It means not to tell other people private or protected information. Example: they kept the plan secret until the day of the announcement. Now tell the story back in your own words. During the Second World War, the U.S. military needed a fast and secure way to send radio messages. Philip Johnston suggested using the Navajo language. In 1942, the first 29 Navajo recruits created a special military code. They used Navajo words for familiar animals and objects to represent planes, ships, and weapons. They also built an alphabet system for names and places. The Code Talkers memorized the system and sent messages under pressure across Pacific battlefields. The enemy could hear the messages, but never broke the operational code. The program stayed secret until 1968, so public recognition came many years later. Their achievement depended on language, shared rules, memory, and trust. Pause now and tell the story once without reading.